Hello, shalom, hola, and welcome to the Spiritual Life with Mystic Travis Tidwell. I'm also a psychic medium, and I want to welcome you here today to my new podcast. This podcast is always being, anything I do in life is being powered by SacredDragon. My executive producer here is a high priestess in SacredDragon, also a third level Reiki master as I am. Coincidentally enough, she's my daughter, but I do have a few women in my organization who are empowered through my philosophy and what I'm doing here on Earth. We're here in this program, Spiritual Life, really to talk about other philosophies and my philosophy. I'm using this as a platform to, put my own stuff out as I'm writing and getting ready to put a book out. Excuse me. There's a lot of religions out there. There's a lot of things we can compare and look at things on a truthful level, no matter what has been documented or what ancient astrologers have said. There are certain facts here that we all need to look at as we're living here on planet Earth in the Adam and Eve consciousness, which is what I'm also promoting through my SacredDragon philosophy. One of my main guides, my main guide is Doth Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, who is the father of intellect and medicine on this planet and all oracles. So, like I said, I'm a mystic psychic medium for a living. I do ceremonial magic. I do numerology. I do pretty much everything in the spectrum of spirituality. Of course, I also have a lower self as well as a higher self, and that's the other reason why I'm sharing my philosophy, so that you can have a balance with your higher self and your lower self. You shouldn't be denying your higher self from prayer and meditation and from things of that nature for higher and spiritual development, but you shouldn't also be ignoring your lower self for having fun and rewarding yourself for what the lower self provides for you in this physical world. The spiritual life is designed for you to start putting things in your daily routine to become more spiritual and to manifest more in your life. And there's many ways that we do that through our spirituality, through metaphysics. We're talking through Qabala, and that's spelled with a Q. If it's a K Qabala, it's spelled with a K. It's traditional Torah, ancient Hebrew history. If it's Kabbalah with a C, it's Christianized. Throw it away. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I'm not a Christian, but I'm Christ-like. We'll talk about that later sometime here, I'm sure, because we all do need the Christ within us as an energy. We're talking about, again, Kabbalah working with metaphysics and actually quantum physics, because how are you moving things in your life today? If you have a 9-to-5 job, it's pretty much routine. It might not be the job that defines you as a being, and maybe you're trying to create change for yourself. Maybe there's a higher energy working for you that you're not conscious of, like your angel or the power of Yahweh. It's not my way or your way, it's Yahweh here on this planet. And this podcast is designed to promote Yahweh in everything we say and do through SacredDragon. And Hermes is the founder over 2,000 years ago of SacredDragon, called the Divine Pymanor. This is just a shoot off from what Hermes did. SacredDragon we have now. And of course, this whole thing is sponsored by Yahweh. And even the god Hermes talks about the one true divine source, which is what we're all talking about right now. If you're sitting at home right now and you're listening to this podcast and you haven't been to a metaphysical bookstore, go to one immediately. This is the first step in you becoming spiritual, is connecting to Mother. And when you have a stone with you, and for those of you who can't see this, we are videotaping this, and you'll be able to go to the Spiritual Life with Mystic Travis Tidwell and see this show, this episode, and you'll see these beautiful crystals I'm surrounded with here right now in the room. And these are always, even if they're not programmed, they're always just putting out positive energy. They're emitting positive rays 24/7. And so this is part of you becoming spiritual. There's many different ways to think about your spirituality. And there's many different spiritual systems out there and disciplines. And as I said in these episodes coming up here, we'll be talking about those type of belief systems. SacredDragon, which again I'm using this podcast as my platform, is a universal system of knowledge where I'm hoping at some point we could start adhering to not only the Christ consciousness, but also to Moses, and give the law of God, the law of Yahweh, the respect it deserves, and to put that into your vibration and learn how to become what we call a starseed here on this planet. Going back to this Adam and Eve consciousness, it's kind of weird because ancient astronauts have said, well, we see that there's been dinosaurs and primates, and there's been a lot of different species here before us. But, it didn't say in the Old Testament, when you look at the Hebrew book of history, that they were facing dinosaurs or, things of that nature. Now, we're talking about a whole planet here. And as I've said, we're all star seeds. But if you're living in the Adam and Eve consciousness, then you're suffering with your relationships, and you're suffering 9 times out of 10 in your life from that consciousness. That consciousness doesn't have a regeneration program on it. So you're going to have to break the bonds of man and woman as far as seeing yourself being connected on that level, where you have to be with each other 24/7, or there's this real heavy energy that comes into your relationship through relationships of love. Such as when we look at the Adam and Eve consciousness, again, Eve was created from Adam's rib, so most men think they own women, when really they don't. And most women are looked at secondary beings here on this planet, when really they're goddesses, and they're created from the feminine energy, which has created everything here. So they're equal to men, and that's how the spiritual life also evolves with you. So you start looking at your partner differently, you start looking at your life differently, you start looking at your children differently, because you're looking to create not only good memories here on this planet while you're here, but you're taking advantage that you are a starseed here, and that there's many different ways you can manipulate and use energy here to benefit yourself and change your destiny. And again, that's what this podcast is all about. Also, I'd like to promote today, during this podcast, my album called Travis Tidwell, Time Has Come, and it's on Spotify and iTunes. And I would ask you to check that out. I'm also promoting a premium subscriber information here, hopefully soon. I'd like to get some premium subscribers, and you could actually get more detailed information, actually training from me. You could go to my website, Travis Tidwell Psychic Medium .com, I believe it is, and you can see my site there and check out some of the services that I do offer for training as well as for personal services. As I said, I'm a psychic medium and a mystic for a living. And so if you're looking at becoming a high priestess or a ceremonial magician or a high priest, or you're looking to evolve yourself in a spiritual status area, then you want to check me out. You can hit me up on that website, as I've said, or you can go to Travis Tidwell Podcast, gmail.com. We're hoping to have Travis Tidwell, we're hoping to have the spiritual life at gmail.com here. I think that's the other thing we're going to have here that you'd be able to email me on. Now, I also have another podcast called Travis Tidwell Medium Psychic. And it's not being used right now, and it's not going to be aired right now, but there is a podcast for that, and there is an email for that. So if you do use the podcast email that I just gave you, the Travis Tidwell Podcast at gmail.com, tell me if you came from the spiritual life. And again, the other website information was TravisTidwellPsychic.com is the website that you want to go to. We're also promoting here that you're doing something every day for yourself, whether it's working with a crystal, which I'm promoting here today, or working with a prayer or meditation. Now, if you email me with your date of birth, then I will give you at some point as a trial offer here information for yourself, which means I'll tell you who your planetary angel is, and maybe a little bit more information live on my podcast. And that will be a blessing and a benefit for you, because my numerology system and my philosophy has been on point with my clients for 30 years now. This is what I'm employed by Spirit. And there is no certification when you're employed by Spirit. There is no document from any college that you can get what I have. And that's especially with life experience. My top priestess now is a psychic for a living. So if you're sitting out there listening to this podcast and you want to change your destiny, and you really want to become serious about your spiritual destiny, then you hit me up, give me an email. If you just want to create more flow in your life and remove more negative energy, then you want to listen to my podcast with the advice and counseling that I'm giving you. You could also possibly hit me up with the email if you have a serious question in your life, and maybe I would answer that for you. But at any rate, this is episode 1 of The Spiritual Life with Travis Tidwell. And before I leave this podcast tonight, also I want to give you just a quartz crystal to deal with. And I would ask everybody who's listening to my podcast, before you even go to the next one, if you have a chance, to get a quartz crystal. and dedicate your first quartz crystal, or if it's not your first quartz crystal, a quartz crystal that you could read with and listen to podcasts with and develop yourself with. That'll be your personal crystal for development, and you can store your energy into this crystal, and it will help work for you. And that's going to be the first thing we share with you tonight, and that I would prescribe to you as a metaphysician. There'll be other things that we will describe in other episodes for you to work with, but that's going to be the first one right now, is just get a quartz and just keep it with you. And that's going to be the first step in your spiritual life for you tonight. I also want to give a shout out to Shelly at Rose's Salon in Coronado. If you haven't, for you men out there, if you don't get men makeover, then shame on you. But for you women out there, that's a great salon. It's about a block and a half from the ocean. It's beautiful. And that's, again, Shelly at Rose's Salon, Coronado. I want to give thanks to my Sacred Dragon members this night and the Sacred Dragon. Always giving things to Yahweh, the Lord God Yahweh. If it's not Yahweh, it's nothing, really. If it doesn't have Yahweh in it, don't touch it. But that's just me, baby. And I want to give thanks to all the beautiful people and spiritual people who support me and who have made this podcast possible. Again, giving my daughter, my high priestess, Athena, here, many, many thanks for doing what she does to get me out here tonight, and for also promoting Sacred Dragon as she does, as she is a high priestess. So, Sacred Dragon is also something you share with your family. It's not just adult only. It has nothing to do with witchcraft or voodoo or anything of that nature. It's all Kabbalah based. In saying that, I wish everybody out here who has received this podcast, Divine Love and Divine Light, hoping and praying that what I have shared with you tonight would be a blessing, a benefit, and a service. God bless you and all your family members and pets and spirit guides and so on and so forth. Amen. So be it.